Ingest Workflow. So, now it's time to talk about Ingest Workflow. What is it and how to use it correctly and profitably as possible to make your work easier? So, we encounter Ingest Workflow in several places. First of all, when we created the project, we had the Ingest Workflow tab in File, Project Settings, General. The second place is in the media browser. Here we can enable or disable the Ingest Workflow checkbox. There is a range nearby that throws us back to this settings menu. What does it do? Ingest Workflow is a set of actions that Premiere performs with the media sources before you can work with it. The beauty of this feature is that you can work in parallel with Premiere that does something with your media sources. If we enable the Ingest checkbox, we'll have four options. The first option is Copy. How does it work? Why do I recommend copying with Ingest Workflow? Because it copies with MD5 verification. MD5 verification is not just copying data, but also checking for copy availability and checksums. If it highlights several control points and they match in the final file and in the source file, then everything will be okay, so it will copy the next file. If they don't match, then it will copy it again. This was often useful when you copied the material and thought that everything was fine, then gave the flash drive to reformat, but it was with errors. You didn't know about it, deleted all the information from the flash drive, and as a result you lost all the material. This is extremely rare, but you shouldn't forget about it. This was the problem with CF cards. Now this is less common, but it's better to play safe. So I always use copy with MD5 verification. Let's consider the action that we can do when importing files to Premiere. I have already said that Premiere doesn't copy anything and doesn't store anything with a small revision, except for Ingest Workflow. By default, it simply establishes a link to the media source. It simply understands that the source material is in one place or another. There is such a thing. If you enable Ingest, then any material that is imported into Premiere passes these procedures from this moment. What can it be useful for? For example, someone came to you with a flash drive and asked you to start editing right away. Firstly, you copied this material. If you remember the old version of Final Cut, we converted it all into ProRes, and then we started editing. After the editing programs were rewritten to 64-bit, we were able to edit the media source immediately without converting them to ProRes. What does it look like? I will demonstrate. For example, we leave primary destination to same as project and select preset with MD5 verification. We can choose without verification, but it's still better with it. And we click OK. Let's say I plugged in a flash drive. Then I imported footages from the intended flash drive into the project. They appear, so I immediately had the opportunity to view them, edit them, and do whatever I need with them. At this time I run the media encoder, which is engaged in copying this data. As soon as I started copying them, the project was relinked from the place where I looked to the place where it was copied. So it gradually copies them and links them to a new place. At this stage, media encoder relinked it from the place where we were copying to the place where we copied. It copied and linked our media sources. This reduces the start time of editing because, for example, you can get a flash drive with 1 terabyte of footage. Firstly, you have to wait until it's copied. Then you need to view it all. And with Ingest Workflow, you can start viewing the material in parallel with copying it. This is very convenient. The next action it can do in standalone mode is transcode. If someone needs it, Ingest Workflow can convert all the media sources to the internal codec, ProRes, GoPro Cineform, etc. And problems arise from this point on, because it will pass all the media sources via the algorithm until you turn off this checkbox. It doesn't matter if it is photos, audio files or video files. It will do the procedure with everything. There is a copy, so it will copy everything. If it is transcode, it will transcode everything. Even if you import the photos, it will convert them into a 5-second video with one frame. Therefore, when you have taken these materials from the flash drive, you had better disable it. Otherwise, you'll accumulate incomprehensible projects. Next, we can create proxies using Ingest Workflow. If you know that you will need proxies for these materials, you will try to view them in parallel in full size. In parallel, the proxy will be converted. As soon as it finishes converting, it links the proxy to the project. So you start seeing this clip a little bit faster. Everything happens in the background. That is a big advantage. And the last biggest option is copy and create proxies. Let's say you were brought a flash drive with a film footage. You run this algorithm. It will both copy the files and edit a proxy to them after copying it. All this will happen in the background, so you will not even notice how the link from the flash drive occurred. Firstly, you will see everything from the flash drive. Then, when everything is copied, it will relink to the copied one. After that, as soon as a proxy appears, it will link to the proxy. These are all automatic processes. That is very cool and very convenient. Of course, if you have different types of material, for example, there are video files of different sizes, then a universal proxy preset won't work with them. This is a small disadvantage of the proxy. You need to select the proxy presets yourself. But I use the Ingest Workflow option with copy all the time, because it's most convenient way to start editing earlier. So I recommend using this feature. Don't forget to disable it. Ingest Workflow saves time, the most important thing we have.